freedom, pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this great land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face that threatens the freedoms that we enjoy. And that's why you hear this theme song at the beginning and close of each program. We have always known that freedom and character are pretty well interdependent. Freedom only works when you have people of good character who care enough about themselves and about one another and are purpose-driven and principle-driven to the extent that they can, if left alone, innovate and prosper and create opportunities for one another. This is how it works. If you leave people of decent character alone, if you don't try to micromanage their lives, if government gets out of their way, wonderful things happen. People of good character build great societies. But when people don't have good character and they have freedom, they tend to abuse it. And in those cases, governments are prone to try and legislate morality, as it were, and to restrict the freedoms that we need to enjoy in order to prosper. And this is what's happening in our country, unfortunately. And I try to do my part to reverse that tide, because this is still the last best hope of freedom on earth, and each one of us has an obligation. Each and every one of us has an obligation to preserve the freedoms that we enjoy, freedoms that are under continuous assault. And they will continue to be under assault until we can demonstrate the kind of character that once made us great. Now, I'm not here to say that we have always been so great. There have been plenty of times in our history where we have really reneged on our core principles. There have been some really dark times, but there also have been some really shining times. Times when we have lived up to the best ideals that we have ever had. Times that we showed ourselves to have the kind of character that the founders always knew that we could have. And when we are of individually good character, then we are collectively of good character, and we build great societies. And that's what I'm doing my part, hopefully, to promote. And I do that in many different ways. My books on character, both character disturbance, the phenomenon of our age, and In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, the international bestseller, soon to be in 17 foreign language. And also my book for the Christian faith community, The Judas Syndrome, which is all about how faith, genuine faith, can really transform a person's life, elevate us to a higher plane of living. Purpose-driven people, faith-driven people, or faith-guided people, principle-driven people, build great societies. And when you give them maximum freedom, maximum prosperity, not just for each individual, but for all, necessarily follows. So my books are geared toward that end, and so are my efforts on the internet, both on my blog at www.manipulative-people.com and the other blog that I write for, www.counselingresource.com, counseling with two L's, by the way, because that's the way the Brits like to spell it. And if you'll visit those blogs, you'll find hundreds of articles on character-related issues. And I'm just concluding a series. Well, actually, I'm in the middle of a series on my Manipulative-People blog. Done right now on that blog. I'm in the middle of a series on the burden of responsible living, bearing the burden of responsible living. You know, we live in such an age of entitlement, in an age of instant fixes for things, instant comfort. Just about anything we want, we can have. And we also kind of used to not really suffering very much. We have it kind of easy. And it takes a long time for folks to cultivate the will to bear any discomfort. And so what I find is that when it comes to some of the big challenges in life, fulfilling one's social responsibilities, especially fulfilling one's responsibilities within a relationship, within an intimate relationship, are too many folks motivated to undertake the burden that it is to lead a responsible life. And all kinds of problems develop from that. So that's what the current series that's underway, Bearing the Burden of Responsible Living, is all about. It follows on the heels of another series that had to do with the duty to make amends, especially when you have really messed up and done damage in your relationships. So you'll find timely articles on the blog, on both the Manipulative-People blog and also on the counselingresource.com blog, hundreds of articles. You'll find valuable material in all three of my books. And then there's the song, which you hear playing at the beginning of the program and at the end of the program, that my wife and I composed back in 1999, and that gained popularity after the tragic attacks on 9/11 in 2001. Gained exposure then and popularity then, and has been performed in hundreds of venues across the country to audiences totaling well over 3 million now. And it carries the message about the individual duty of each and every one of us to preserve the freedoms that we enjoy here. So that's another way I try to carry the message. And its season is upon us. I like to say there's a season for the song between Memorial Day through Flag Day, Independence Day, and then concluding with Veterans Day. That's really the season when I get all kinds of requests for performances of the song. And you can go to my YouTube channel, see sample performances, hear sample performances, and get hooked and join the ever-growing chorus of folks carrying the message. That's another way I try to promote the cause of character building in our country and our duty to preserve our freedoms. So make yourself available of those things. I'm glad you're with us tonight. If you're new to the program, that you've just kind of learned, you just had a crash course of what the program is all about. If you're a veteran of the program, welcome once again. If you want to contribute to the program, the number that to call is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. This is an open forum night. We are going to be talking, as usual, going to be doing some talking about the current series of articles on the blog. But it is an open forum night, so if you have questions you want to ask, if you have just something you'd like to contribute, a circumstance you'd like to share, many times we have folks call in who have either read my books and have profited from them in some way, or who have questions. Maybe they've gone to the blog. I see we have a call coming in now, too, so I'm going to take this one. Let's see who it's from. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the program. Welcome to Character Matters.
Oh, thanks. I thought it was like a recording or something. This is my first time calling in.
No, it's a live program tonight, and we're having an open forum tonight. So, welcome to the program. What would you like to say or ask?
Well, I just happened upon your information online, and I was just planning on listening in today. I didn't know the format or anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is your chance to either make a contribution. Are you familiar with some of my work?
Yes, I've looked at a little bit of it, yes.
Uh-huh. If you have a question you want to ask, you're free to ask a question. If you just want to share an experience with the listeners and maybe get some feedback, you're free to do that as well.
Okay, I'll listen in for now, and then if I have something I'd like to contribute, I will definitely chime in.
Okay. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that's how it works. It's just.
Am I the only person on?
You're the only person at this time, yes.
Oh, okay. So I ran across your work. You're actually from Arkansas. I'm from Arkansas too, so that was kind of fun to see.
Where about in Arkansas?
I am originally from Brinkley, Arkansas, but I live in Clearwater now.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I'm in the Little Rock area. I live in Maumelle.
Yeah, okay. Very good, very good.
Right.
Well, I just recently have discovered that my husband is, a controller and manipulative and has narcissistic tendencies and all this stuff. And I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with it and how to handle, and how to interact and all of that. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you come to the part, do you have the book In Sheep's Clothing?
I don't. I haven't gotten that book. Is it available on Audible?
Yes, it is. Sure is.
Awesome. Okay, I might even purchase it tonight then.
Yeah, it's available on in digital edition. It's available audio edition. You can go to Amazon and you can have it. I think, and you can get a download if you are able to play MP3s or stream them through your car,
Mm-hmm.
or you can get the CD. Yeah. Sure.
I'd be streaming it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just have read a few articles and everything. I can't remember what specifically, what they're specifically saying at this point because I had put it on my calendar. I was like, oh my gosh, he has a live show, so I just wanted to tune in.
Hmm. Then you're also going to find on both my manipulative-people.com site, my personal blog site, and also
Uh-huh.
on the other blog that I write for based in the UK, the counseling with two L's, by the way, counselingresource.com blog site, you'll find at least 100 articles on manipulative and covertly aggressive folks, controller types, and you'll
Mhm.
find not just information on those types and how to understand them, but you'll find very timely articles on how to implement what I call the tools of empowerment that I describe
Yes.
in my book. I outline
Yes.
12 tools of empowerment so that you can maximize your chances of having some breathing room and being able to go toe to toe, so to speak, with the manipulative or controlling person in your life. So
Yes. You said which site is that on? I'm
both
firing up
sites,
my.
you'll find at
Okay.
least 100 articles between the two sites on
Mhm.
manipulative-people.com. That's
Mhm.
www.manipulative-people.com.
Yeah, that's the one I was on. Mhm.
Mhm. And also, while I think of it, let me just interrupt for a minute. Also, on the site, you will find that once you've gotten this material down, I wanted to make an announcement. I am so far behind on emails, but I'm now caught up within a week. It's taken me
Oh.
since between Christmas and New Year's, I usually get very behind. And this
Mhm.
year,
Mhm.
I had so many hundred emails that
Wow.
it has literally taken me till now to get to caught up within a week. At one point, I hate to admit it, at one point, I was 5 weeks behind. I'm
Oh
embarrassed to
wow.
admit it, but I had that many emails. And I also
Mhm.
get requests for consultations that I do via
Mhm.
Skype to help
Okay.
folks who have read the material and are familiar with it, but are still having problems putting things into practice and want some
Okay.
elaboration or clarification on the principles. So I do those too. So I just wanted to get that in and mention that to you as well. But I wanted to make the announcement. My apologies once again to folks, but I'm getting real close to getting caught up. I'm within a week now, so bear with me.
Okay.
Um, but when you're on the manipulative-people.com website, you'll see a page that says Contact Dr. Simon. And if you want to send me a note, you have a question for me, you want to arrange a
Okay.
consultation, anything like that, you just click on that tab. It keeps your email private for anybody else but for me. Uh,
Okay.
and I will definitely get back with you. So,
Okay. Let me see here.
so did you have something you wanted to share or a question you wanted to
Well,
ask?
let me get on your site and see exactly what piqued my interest to want to get on today.
The current the
Because
current the current series is on the burden of responsible living. Um, and it's a follow-up series to the series on making amends. I had a four-part series on making amends about the duty we have in relationships when we do damage to
hmm
repair that damage. And kind of a cousin issue to that is the whole burden that it is that we have to assume to lead a responsible life. And in our time, unfortunately, as I was saying at the introduction to the program, there's all too many folks used to just taking a pill and making everything better. Everything's so easy. Nobody wants to really put themselves out or do any suffering these days, it seems.
Oh
And
yeah.
leading a responsible life, conducting a responsible relationship is hard work. And
Mhm.
you have to
Mhm.
be kind of at peace with that. You have to kind of made up your mind that you're going to work at these things. Um,
Yep.
and I'm afraid that all too many folks these days just don't have that frame of mind. So that's what this current series is all about. It presents some vignettes that give examples of folks who've done a really poor job at that, but also some examples of folks who have done a better job of that. So that's what the series is about.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was looking at is, well, okay. Here's the thing with my husband. You know, he he has he has these. Well, what I'm thinking is that he has these unmet needs, and so it is very hard to get him to get into a conversation about what his needs are, and you know, coming to some type of mutuality of talking about them, and you know, because you can't address something that you don't know what it is, and it's like he says he's told me what they are over and over again, but you know, it,
Well,
I don't, I
I,
don't, you know what I
I'm
mean?
not.
It's like,
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, if it's unspoken, you know, you can't address something that you don't know what it is, and so it leads me to believe that he is just. I don't understand. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
I don't understand why he stays in a relationship that he doesn't want to behave right. You know, so
Yeah.
why I don't understand why he doesn't leave.
Well, one of the principles, you bring up a good point here. One of the principles I advocate in my book, and one of the things that leads to one of the biggest tools of empowerment is, we are kind of hardwired to ask these why questions. We not want to know what's going on inside of a person that's motivating their behavior
Mhm.
because we desperately want to understand, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
We want to know what's going on with them, what's making them act the way they do, what the underlying needs are or motivations are, right? Isn't that natural?
Mhm.
But one of the things
Yeah.
one of the counterintuitive things that I advise in my books is that you really disempower yourself when you second
Mm.
guess intentions or needs and stuff like that. And
Okay.
you also disadvantage yourself when you assume, and many people assume that the person must not be aware, all that aware. And so, unless they talk things out, they're never going to come to some level of awareness about what's going on. And so, one of the things that I advise in the book that's a really major empowerment uh, paradigm is to
Mhm.
just judge actions, not intentions.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Look at the
Yes.
behavior only, and
Mhm. Mhm.
and deal with the behavior only.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
And really, one of the things that I do, like for example, when I engage in consultations, that I give more specific advice about how to do that because every case is different.
Mhm.
But once you stop second guessing and just focus on the behaviors that you really want to change. You know,
Okay.
I would like you to not do this and instead do that.
Mhm.
What you will find is not only will you be more empowered, but any resistance that there is to that will automatically surface. And whatever is underlying that resistance will eventually flush itself out. So you won't have to wonder anymore about what the unmet needs are or what the driving motivation is
Mhm. Mhm.
behind the
Mhm.
behavior. That will all flush itself out once you address the behavior itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that even makes more sense, you know, and maybe I just wasn't able to articulate what it is that I want to happen. I
Hmm.
mean, because my husband is very covertly aggressive. He is, oh my gosh, I mean, nobody sees it except for me. You know, to everybody else, he's this wonderful, oh, caring and blah, blah, blah. When that, you know, it's I just believe it's just so he can, get what he wants
Hmm.
from you.
Well, one of the
You know?
points that I make in Sheep's Clothing, you're going to really enjoy that part of the book, I can tell, is that unfortunately, many folks who are covertly aggressive are also very skilled at the process that we call impression management. By that I mean they know how to cast a pretty good image. When they want to look
Mhm.
good, they can look really,
Mhm.
really good. And this is
Mhm.
what makes the
Mhm.
person on the receiving end of the covert aggression feel crazy because they know that there's something wrong, but everybody else thinks the person might even they think the person's a saint maybe even, and so it makes you
Yeah.
wonder: is it me? Is it
No,
really
see,
me?
that's the other thing. I figured out it's not me. I know it's not me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I am perfect or anything like that, but I know a lot of this is not me, and he wants me to believe that. I mean, and this is what he does. Whatever I say or whatever issue I raise with him, he turns it around and says it's me. I mean,
Mm,
it's like he has no thoughts of his own. He doesn't want to bring up anything, you know, about me or whatever on his own that he wants to address. It's
mm-hmm,
only when I say something about him, he
mm-hmm,
turns around and says the exact same. So if I say, your issue is with blue, he go, well, your issue is with
mm-hmm,
blue. And so I can be focused on, denying, oh no, my issue is not with blue, my issue is not with blue. You know what I'm saying? So it'll get
yeah,
and he, you know what? And I know, like I just read something in your thing, I know that I have the perfect personality for him to just suck up, you know, and I've allowed him to control me all these years. But here's the thing that makes me so sad, and I can't believe that none of these counselors that I've ever gone to have ever picked it up.
let me interrupt you there for 2 minutes because you bring up two things that are so important, and I want our listening audience to benefit from this. And I'm so grateful for you bringing them both up. Okay, but
Mhm.
you bring up two things here that are really crucial. Number one, when you have someone with a character disturbance, traditional therapy, as you've found out, is usually not going to help. It's usually not going to help. And it,
Yes.
it could enable things to be worse because many times, like I said, these folks are very good at impression management. And what will happen is that the traditionally minded therapist will be snowed many times. And so the agony basically is only prolonged. So many folks have found this out. Traditional therapy was meant for highly conscientious people who are kind of nervous wrecks, who are driving themselves a little batty, with their over conscientiousness, and who have repressed their feelings and who have gotten kind of out of touch with themselves. That's what traditional therapy was meant for. And if that's the problem, then wonderful. But when you're talking about disturbances of character, where someone is covertly aggressive or where they're narcissistic, when you're talking about these kinds of things, traditional therapy is not going to help. You need a therapy that addresses specifically those behaviors and tactics that are destructive to a relationship. And they need to be addressed right within the context of the therapy session. So, in other words, when the person's doing that impression management, they can be called on that immediately. Don't just try to look good. We want you to be more than looking good. We want you to be good. And when they're using those tactics
Yes.
of turning the tables and trying to turn everything on you, we want that confronted right there and then in the moment. That's the kind of
Yep.
behavior that needs to change right there.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I'm so
Yep.
grateful for you bringing that up. And the other great thing you brought up is that, and I alluded to it just a moment ago, and that is that change always takes place in the here and now moment. So when a person is using these tactics, at the very moment they're trying to make you feel crazy, Like you're the crazy one, you're the one with the problem. At the very moment they're using these tactics, they are telling you two things. One, they don't intend to change. They are still resisting. They're still actively fighting against accepting what it is. They know you want them to change, but they're still kind of against it, okay? So that's one thing they're telling you. And they're also telling you that the very things that you are troubled by are going to keep happening. They're telling you that every time these tactics are used. And that's why in the book I advocate that you always address the behavior. It's those specific things that they do that you want to make it clear have to change. And I also advise that you start small, because if there's going to be any willingness at all on the person's part to do some changing, it has to be with baby steps, And here's what most really conscientious people do. They hate to be nitpicky. So they hate to single out the small little things. They would rather only go to bat, so to speak, when there's a big issue at stake. And that's a mistake. Because if somebody's going to change...
Can you give an example of something small?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Let's just say that you're in a conversation and you hear that tone, that condescending tone that so often just gets under your skin because it's not respectful. And automatically with that condescending tone, you know that you're being partially tuned out, right? Don't be afraid to confront that. And don't be afraid to set a limit. Don't be afraid to say, for example, I'd like you to rephrase that. I'd like you to ask me the very same thing or make the same point again, but without that tone. And if they won't do it, you might set a limit. Like, you know what? We're not going to have this conversation right now. Maybe we'll have this conversation in another 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but we're not going to have it under these terms.
Well, you know what my husband will say? He doesn't want to talk to me anyway. Because most of the time it's me trying to tell him there's something he needs to do or something he didn't do or whatever. Most of the times he does not even talk to me. Okay, that's why I don't even understand why he stays here.
Well, going to the why part is just is disempowering.
A waste of time.
Yeah, and paying attention to the tactics is a waste of time too. You have to dismiss them because it's basically the way the person fights. It's basically how they fight. And you have to be the one to set the terms of engagement. If the irresponsible person is not going to set correct terms of engagement, then you have to set the terms.
Okay.
It's that simple. You're gonna have more insight into this as you read all the material. And
okay.
I would bet you this right now. The next time we have a conversation, it would be a very, very different conversation. After you kind of get clued into the principles that are in the book, and you see the vignettes, and you have kind of that aha experience, and maybe you've read several of the articles on the blog and stuff like that. The next time we have a conversation, it'll be a whole different conversation. I promise.
Let me ask you: do they ever change?
That's the most frequent question I ever get.
Of course.
And by the way, that's why I wrote my second book, Character Disturbance. I wrote that book primarily because character disturbance exists along a spectrum of severity. It's kind of like we've learned now about the autistic disorders. We've learned that you can have just kind of a touch of autism or you can be fully autistic. Same way with the character disturbance. You can have a really serious degree of character disturbance where you're not going to change, where it's so etched, so deeply ingrained, so part of the fabric of somebody's personality that there's virtually no hope. Especially with traditional models of therapy, and even with the radical new forms of therapy, going to be virtually impossible, especially when a person gets so set in their ways. But then there are lesser degrees of character disturbance. And in those cases, with the right kind of therapy, and there's the key, with the right kind of therapy and with good limit setting on your part, when you use those tools of empowerment, yes, they can change. I get, you know what? This is the surprising thing. I get at least 2 to 3 emails every week from people who have read the book who say, that manipulator, that's me.
Wow.
And then they want to know what they can do to change.
Huh.
Now, most folks would not believe that. Most folks would not believe that I get emails from people who recognize themselves as the proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing and have any motivation to change at all. But I get those kinds of emails all the time. I don't get them as
Oh, that would be
frequently
great.
as I get
Yeah.
emails from folks who are aggrieved spouses or aggrieved persons in a relationship who say, oh my gosh, I just realized who I'm involved with and it's just killing me. I get many more of those, but I do get the other kind, and I've worked with those folks.
Mm.
So yes, it
Wow.
is possible. It depends on the seriousness of the character disturbance involved. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I am thinking that I am going to download the book on my thing tonight and start listening to it because I'm just really tired. I am just really, really, really tired of all of this foolishness.
Well, I wish you all the best, and I thank you for calling in today.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sure I'll be Are you here every Sunday?
Every Sunday at 7 Eastern time and 6 Central time, and that'd be 4 o'clock Pacific time every Sunday. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, whether due to illness or a prior engagement, on rare occasion there might be a pre-recorded program. And if there is, you can't call in because, and you'll hear me announce on what sounds like a live program to call in, and then you won't be able to get through. But that's rare.
Okay.
Most of the time, I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for calling in.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Well, and that's how it works, folks. And we covered a lot of ground today. But happy to take the call. Once again, the number to call is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Maybe you have a question you want to ask. Maybe you have a situation that is troubling you. Maybe you have an insight that you want to share. Maybe you've read either any one of the books or have gone to the blog sites, read some of the articles. Maybe you've had some aha experiences that you want to share. Maybe you have some experiences of your own that you'd like to share that you think our audience would benefit from hearing about. If you do, give us a call at 718-717-8296. Once again, 718-717-8296. Happy to take your call. I did want to say a little bit about the current series on bearing the burden of responsibility. This is life is hard, Life is hard for all of us. But leading a responsible life is even harder. Just getting by is hard enough. But leading a conscientious, purpose-driven, principle-driven life is hard work. And we have to find some reason in our heart of hearts to pick up that burden. We have to have enough human empathy, and we have to have enough commitment to the principles that guide us to pick up that burden or cross and carry it. And one of the reasons why I wrote character disturbance is because I wanted to include in character disturbance not just an explanation for all the various types of character disturbances that we have out there today, and what makes some of these disturbed characters the way they are, and what factors in our culture and in our society are promoting so much character disturbance. I didn't want to just write about that, but I also wanted to include, and I did include, what I consider to be and what I call the quote-unquote 10 commandments of character formation or character development. These are the 10 life lessons that I consider to be crucial to be learned when we're growing and developing, that will help transform us into people of good character. And if you don't have character disturbance, if you don't have that book, you can find these articles online about that. There are articles both on the manipulative-people.com website and that blog, and also on the counselingresource.com blog, and some articles that feature these various quote-unquote commandments of sound character development and what they're all about. And we have to combat this culture that we live in that promotes this massive sense of entitlement and this notion that we should be able to be comfortable all the time, and that if we have something painful to do, we should be able to avoid it in some way. There ought to be some way out of it. There ought to be some way for us to feel better, and to feel better instantly. I know all too many people, I know that genuine addiction, once tolerance develops, genuine addiction is an illness. Our biochemistry changes, and we can become easily dependent on certain substances. But what generally leads folks to substance abuse in the first place, and then that substance abuse leads to dependence, is that desire for that instant relief from any uncomfortable feeling. People don't want to sit with their uncomfortable feelings. They don't want to process them. We live in a take a pill and make it feel better age. So folks want that instant change of feeling. If they're feeling upset, they want to be able to instantly ventilate. So they'll use whatever substance helps them take the edge off, and then all heck breaks loose. Or maybe they'll want to feel a relief from the anxieties that they're having. They don't want to process those anxieties, see what they're all about, what's going on with them that's leading to that. Nature gives us these feelings, these things that we have called feelings. Nature gives them to us for a reason. We have our feelings for a darn good reason. Even our unpleasant feelings, even the anger that we sometimes feel. It's all there. All these things are there for reasons. And we're supposed to pay attention to those things. We're supposed to process our feelings, figure out what it's all about. And then, on top of that, once we've processed our feelings and figured out what they're all about, do something about it. We live in a really dangerous age where people will become despondent over something. And instead of processing what that despondency is all about. Now, I'm not talking about strictly biochemical depression here. I'm not talking about that. I want to make that clear. But sometimes people will get down. And it's not just because of bad wiring or bad biochemistry. And nature is telling them something is wrong. Something is wrong in the way they're going about things and the way their environment is structured, where they're not finding enough joy. And if they'll spend some time with that, spend some time with that unhappiness, sort through all the feelings, sort through the feelings of despondency. What is it that I'm unhappy about? Where has the joy gone? What's causing me so much pain? Why am I not having the opportunity for some vitalizing energy to enter my life? What changes, therefore, do I need to make? What behaviors need to change? What do I need to change so that I could experience more joy? And then make those changes. Instead of just running to the doctor and looking for a pick-me-up pill or running for the bottle for some instant relief or running to some other pill to feel better. Because one of the things that will happen that's really insidious is that when we get some degree of relief from our unpleasant feelings, we'll just keep doing the same old things that were leading to our unhappiness. We'll lose any motivation that we might otherwise have had to fix what needs to be fixed. That's the danger in just taking a pill to feel better. But we live in an instant feel-good culture. We're not used to bearing discomfort. And that's the way it is within our relationships. Now, people of really decent character, especially the over-conscientious types that I like to call neurotic individuals, these are the folks that take the whole weight of the world on their shoulders. They willingly take on their burdens, perhaps excessively so. They're often in relationships with character-disturbed individuals who don't want to share the burden. And then the over-conscientious party takes on the burdens for both. They take on everything because they're the one willing to do it. And this is not healthy either, because then the irresponsible party in the relationship, the character-impaired person in the relationship, is quote-unquote enabled to stay irresponsible. So it can go both ways. You know, you can be kind of overly eager to take on the burdens of responsible living, or you can be undermotivated to accept the burdens of responsibility. And unfortunately, these days, we live in the character-impaired age where we have far too many folks among us who just don't want to pick up the burden. Pick up the burden that it takes to make a relationship really work, an intimate relationship really work. To be a good marital partner, to be a good relationship partner, to be a good brother or sister, to be a good husband or father, to be a good mother, or a good father. These are the important things. And they all require picking up a substantial burden. And too many of us, I'm afraid, largely an outgrowth of our age and the cultural climate of our time, don't want to pick this burden up. And it's costing us. It's costing everyone. What's happening, the mega trend that's happening in our society is this. And I speak to this in character disturbance because it's a phenomenon that simply cannot go on. It'll reach a breaking point. But here is the phenomenon. those conscientious types among us, those overly conscientious, quote unquote, neurotic types, we keep burdening them with more and more responsibilities as a society. Our government, in its infinite wisdom, has seen fit to put more rules upon us than ever before. We have more rules to play by than any advanced society on earth has ever had, and there are more put on us daily. So responsible people are being burdened incrementally, exponentially greater than ever before. Whereas those who are perfectly willing to shirk all of their responsibilities are actually asked to do less than ever before. You know, there are two tragedies. We talk about this is an unbelievable tragedy. In this country, we incarcerate per capita more people than any free society on the planet, percentage-wise of our population. And I know that the critics say that this is because we have too many people incarcerated who shouldn't be incarcerated. And to some extent, that is probably true when it comes to nonviolent offenses. But I'm here to tell you, folks, I am here to tell you this. The courts are so overburdened, the backlogs are so great, that you literally have to claw your way into prison. Judges are very, very willing to give probation. You have to violate your probation for the umpteenth time. You have to totally disregard every second chance you've been given to finally earn and claw your way into prison. Most of the time, unless you're a severe violent offender. And even in those cases where you think you're dealing with relatively victimless or nonviolent crimes, such as drug offenses, the reality is that that might be the reason that you were finally convicted, but the fact is that most of these folks who commit these acts have done tons of other things, any number of which could have earned them a spot in either a jail or a prison, but they just happen to be convicted under the easier to prosecute crime. So the real tragedy is that there are so many people who qualify to lose all their freedoms. And even when they do, here's the worst part, they're not too unhappy to go, many cases. The environment's not all that pleasant, but I will tell you, it is far more pleasant than you would think, except in, say, for example, maximum security facilities or supermax facilities, where you're never going to see the light of day. So there's really hardly any consequence, which is why so many people are so willing to do it. You know, one of the basic tenets of behavior theory is that people do repeatedly the things that they feel rewarded for doing. So you have to ask yourself the question, if we're having such a great percentage of our population dysfunctioning at such an extent that we have to put them away, what are they getting out of it? What rewards are they experiencing from it? There's no adverse consequence to the behavior. And, you know, there's there's always the criticism, too, that punishing folks for bad behavior doesn't work. Well, that has a grain of truth to it, because punishment is a relatively ineffective way of shaping behavior as opposed to rewarding positive behavior, promoting positive behavior. Punishment for negative behavior is relatively ineffective, but it can be a deterrent. It can have an effect, but it must meet three conditions. One, it has to be certain. And by certain, I mean that the person has to know that if they do X, Y will follow. For certain. They can't think they might get away with it. And all too many people think they can get away with it because it's true. They can get away with it. Second condition that has to be met is it has to be swift, immediate. In other words, you do X, Y occurs as soon as you do it. These days, people don't even get arraigned, let alone go to trial, for months. Sometimes years can go by before the consequences meted out. That has no effect. And then lastly, whatever it has to cost you has to be enough of a cost to make you think twice about doing it again. Another, it has to really cost you. It has to be aversive enough, the punishment. It has to hurt enough. And unfortunately, the way we punish doesn't meet that criteria. Now, I'm not advocating things like torture or anything like that. Believe me, I'm not. But if you're going to punish people, you have to punish correctly, otherwise you're wasting your time. But the real sad tragedy is that we have that many folks so dysfunctional in our society. And that's why I will continue to do my part through all my writings, on the blogs, through my books, through the song, exhorting every person to do their part. That's why I will continue to sound the alarm about the defining crisis of our time, the defining issue of our time, and urging each and every one of us to take this seriously. Character will matter again when we say it matters again. When we make it matter for every aspect of our lives. When we make it matter for those choices that we make, who to hook up with in life, who to partner with in life. When we make that count, and when we look at ourselves and we say what kind of people we want to be and what principles and values we're going to uphold and what commitment we're willing to make to do the hard work that it takes to lead a responsible life. That's when character will be cool again, when we make it cool, when we do our part, when we hold ourselves accountable and we hold each other accountable. And that's what's going to help us restore our greatness. Our society will be great again when we are great individually again and collectively again. But it starts at the individual level. It starts with you and it starts with me. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. That's what we are urging in this song for all of us to do. And I'll be back with you next week for another edition of Character Matters. See you soon.